Hello and welcome along to your Tuesday night edition of the TII podcast. A bit of a schedule change for us at the start of pre-season. We're just going to try out a few different things as we move through the busy transfer window and the pre-season games and see how we go on. But I'm joined tonight for what will be a slightly shorter version of the podcast, just a half hour. Tonight is what we'll aim for. We may end up going a wee bit longer if that's where the news takes us. But a wee half hour tonight, and I'm joined by JB. Fresh off the back of his Sunday night return to the podcast. How you doing, JB?
Yeah, it's like buses, isn't it? You don't get one and then two come along at the same time. But yeah, no, it's been. I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be a bit of a busy couple of days. I was fully, as I said the other day on the pod, I was fully expecting Cody to be in the door today, based on some conversation that I'd had. So just have to wait and see whether there's been a wee bit of a delay there, or whether we're waiting for some people to go out the door before they come in. So yeah, but hopefully, you never know, something might break tonight while we're on. So we'll wait and see.
Absolutely, it's not been a quiet day. I think it's fair to say. Maybe we expected more scarves above heads, but it's still been a busy day in terms of news and rumours around that kind of thing. Hamza Igamane one is continuing to move, and we'll come on to that one. Connor Cody we'll speak to a little bit as well. But the first one that I want to start with, and it only kind of came out in the past 4 or 5 hours or so, but it's Rangers' interest in Joe Rothwell from Bournemouth, who's on loan at Leeds last year, which creates the obvious connection with 49ers Enterprises. But it appears it's not only just a rumour. In fact, he's really close to signing on the dotted line. 2-year deal with the option of a third. JB, what did you make of the link, first of all, when it came out, and then obviously that's progressed pretty quickly since there?
Yeah, well, when it first come out, it was a little bit like, when you recognise the name, but you can't kind of put a face to it. And then kind of done a little bit more digging. Phoned a couple of Leeds fans that I know in work, and was like, just tell us a little about this fella. And he's like, we love him. I think it was which then automatically gets you a little bit, okay, right, this is all right. I think there's that many times we've tried to, especially under Beale, we tried to sign players that were maybe they'll be okay, or their careers maybe fell off a little bit, and it's kind of on the way. I think we're going to get a lad here that's just going to be really experienced. I think he'll come in. I think he'll probably hit the ground running, be pretty comfortable. I think we've all done our high-level footballing scouting exercise this afternoon on YouTube. I've just watched a 9-minute one on him just to try and get a bit of a feel. They never show you them giving the ball away, do they? But but from what I've seen from there, he's giving me a little bit of Ryan Jack vibes. In terms of seems quite comfortable on the ball, happy to receive from the back four, very forward thinking. I think some of the statistical maps that we've seen show that he progresses the ball, and that's something that he's really good at. And then I was quite surprised as to how many games he'd actually played in the Premier League as well. So only a few seasons ago, he was picking up like 20, 25 Premier League appearances in one season. So you've got to have something about you. And it's not as if Bournemouth have been down towards the bottom end of the table that much. They've been kind of on the up and play some really good football. So I think the fact that he's worked with Russell Martin before, I don't think it's going to be an old pals act. I don't think Russell Martin's got time for that, if we're being perfectly honest. If he tries to bring his mates up the roads and it doesn't work, then it's not going to be a win for anyone. From what we're hearing, the contract length sounds sensible. 2-year deal for a 30-year-old. Comes in, does well, bit of a no-brainer. Comes in, doesn't do particularly well. There'll probably be a list of clubs in the Championship that would easily take him off our hands. So yeah, no, it's probably one that doesn't excite me, but definitely one that more interests. And if you think about the volume of players that are eventually going to go out, him coming in, I think there's definitely going to be a good space for him.
Yeah, I think, like you said, one of the first things that jumped out at me, you instantly go on to, I think it was Graham Smith from the Yorkshire Evening Post was one of the ones that was first to break the news, and you go into the comments underneath that, and it's full of Leeds fans saying he'll be a great signing for them. He'll do so well in that league. Sad he isn't coming back to us to play in the Premier League, all that kind of stuff, and that gives you encouragement. Like you said, I think it really does. There seems to have a lot of goodwill from Leeds fans as well. 36 appearances for them last season in the Championship, which is a fair amount, particularly for a team that was at the top of the league for pretty much the full the full season. You've spoken before.
Just on that, I think it was 41 appearances overall if you include the cups and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you think about our players sometimes, I always use the Joe Aribo example. Did he play 74 games that season we got to
it's crazy
the
season,
Bill?
yeah.
So we need players that can rock up these amounts of minutes. Obviously, as the older he gets, the less minutes he's going to be able to probably deliver on a consistent basis. But for too long now, we've had players who missed long parts of the season due to injury. But I was kind of looking through his games earlier that he's played this year, and you're looking like 37, 39, 42, 43. So we've got to get somebody there, I dare say, who's a little bit robust. I'm sure we'll rip that out of him. But we'll no, I think it's definitely one that's going to tick a box for us, which is good.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few people in the comments kind of saying he's not a blockbuster signing, he's more of a solid kind of signing. I think even when you look at the players that we'd signed, I think in the first couple of years under the 49ers enterprises, they're not going out for the big names. They're not going out for the ones that are grabbing the headlines all the time. But what they seem to do is build a squad, and they seem to build players who fit a particular role for the manager. And they do it effectively and they do it efficiently, and they're players that don't cost the earth to manage that as well. I mean, we've not seen reports of what the fee could be for Joe Rothwell from Bournemouth, but I don't imagine it's huge. If going by just his profile and his age, and he's not really going to get a game for Bournemouth from there. So it seems to be that is probably in the model that I expected to see from the 49ers Enterprises, players that they already know, players that they understand, players that will do a job for Russell Martin and come in. And it's really encouraging, as we said, that it's the sort of backing that he's having from Leeds fans as well. One thing that stuck out to me, JB, when I was reading about him, was just the consistent mentions of how good his set piece delivery is. And that's something that we've been lacking for. Fair enough, we've got James Tavernier, but we should be scoring a lot more goals from set pieces than we do, especially given the number we get in a game. How encouraging is that as well, that it's not just his work in midfield, and he is described as a ball playing number 8, and that as his kind of role within the midfield. And we'll come on to talk about how that potentially works with the likes of Raskin and Diomande in there as well, and how they could potentially complement each other. But just on the set piece side of it, it feels like it's been James Tavernier or nothing for however many years, 10 years now we can say, because it's James Tavernier's 10th season with us. So how encouraging is that we just have a different dimension, something a bit different coming in with him as well?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, but what's James Tavernier sitting there thinking? He got me right back position's been taken. Free kicks are getting taken off him. Next thing we'll be taking throw-ins off him as well. But yeah, no, as you say, it's just a different option, isn't it? We know James Tavernier's got a really good delivery, but I think in terms of somebody, sometimes we can be a bit of a victim of James Tavernier taking everything. One of the fellas who was sitting next to at the match, Doddsy, he once showed the worst thing he could have done a couple of seasons ago was planted in my head how long it takes James Tavernier to get back into the right back position after he takes a set piece, especially if he takes a corner on the left hand side. And it can be up to 3 or 4 minutes at times for him to get back over by the time everything shuffles over. So to have someone that little bit further up who can take the set pieces, I think will be an interesting option. He's obviously not a goal scoring midfielder, but one thing that you do see, again, you only see the great bits in the YouTube highlights, but he can score goals. The type of game, there's no doubt he'll have more passes in his first handful of games than we'll probably have in 10 games down at Leeds in the Championship. It's a really competitive league. One thing that's really jumped out at me is the way he looks like he likes to get stuck in. And that's something that we've desperately missed for quite a long time. I think there was times last year where Nico Raskin was having to do everything. We were expecting him to be the ball winner, the ball carrier, the chance creator. Towards the second half of the season after Ferguson come in, he became the goal scorer and the playmaker as well. So I think if we can lighten the load a little bit, and I think this is going to be a type of signing where he's been bought to play a position. So he's not going to be one of these ones that can play 4 or 5 positions. I think we've been victims of that over the last few seasons. You think of the likes of Sam Lammers. Sam Lammers was brought in, and within the first 12 games, we've seen him right wing, left wing, in number 9, number 10. I think one of the things you might see now with the new approach with the 49ers and what Leeds have done, I think I mentioned it the other day in terms of Liverpool signing strategy. If you're doing something right, you're buying players for positions to do a role. So and that basically means that the whole club is focused towards that one approach. And it sounds as if he's going to come in and do that role. I think everyone was getting a bit excited about the prospect of is it Downs, is it from Flynn Downs
And
from
down
the boy
Southampton.
Southampton. Now that
Yeah.
one's probably going to that'll be a wee bit out of our reach, I would have thought, in terms of the type of fee that they'd be looking for. But obviously, this guy would have been instrumental in that midfield as well that season for Southampton, certainly in the second half. So, yeah, no, it's as I said earlier, it's not going to be exciting. It's probably not going to be our marquee signing of the summer, but somebody that I think will come in and do a job. And my kind of barometer over the next few weeks, is he better than what's going out? So the fact that without even seeing him play, I would say he's going to offer more than Kieran Dowell and Cifuentes. So straight away, he's getting a thumbs up. So. But yeah, as I say, it'll just be an interesting one. It'll be my only concern with guys like this coming in is just going to be because we've got to be balanced, right? We can't just sit here and be cheerleaders. Is going to be the quality in Europe
Yeah.
in terms of what does that step up look like. It's okay, and again, the English Championship is far more competitive than the Scottish Championship, so I expect them to be able to compete at that level. No concerns, but I do think we're going to need that little bit more if we still want to be a force in Europe, which we have been.
Yeah, I think Europe's an interesting one because you're never quite sure about if there's an adjustment period needed or not for them to just get up to the level and the speed of that game. I think it's something that quite a lot of our players have adjusted really well to in recent years, even when it seems like they struggled with the physicality of the Scottish Premiership. Europe's where they've been able to play the game that they're used to, I guess, and play the game that they've been able to where they excel. Whereas actually, you're looking at Joe Rothwell and you're saying, right, and he's maybe more of a player that's suited to the league than to Europe. And it'll be interesting just to see, because he might well be suited to Europe too, but it'll be interesting just to see how that goes. And at Rangers, especially the way the qualifiers come round and how quickly they happen, you don't get that period of time for adjustment, and you don't get that that couple of moments to just find your feet. We've time after time we've suffered in qualifiers because players have needed that and they've not had that chance. So it'll be really interesting to see how players like Joe Rothwell adapt to that as we go forward. But Daniel Farke, the Leeds manager, described him as the best ball playing midfielder in the division alongside Tanaka, who he's partnering with for Leeds. So it shows how highly he's rated and how highly he's regarded as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because it might just be a case of we might see a really different dimension to the way that we approach the season. I think over the last couple of seasons, we've kind of used what we've got, but you might see one of the criticisms of Diamandi is his domestic performances just haven't been there. And I think we all agree he's got lots of talent, lots of skill, showcases that in Europe, and he showcased it in the old firms. It could be a case of you bringing Rothwell in to do your dog work in your domestic games, and Diamandi's then that little bit more fresher. So it's not the same guys going to the well every single week. But I mean, if you think about domestically, if you're going away from home now, if you've got Raskin, Rothwell, and Diamandi in that midfield three, you've then got three players that are going to work really hard for you.
Are you happy with that? Are you happy with that balance that it seems to be?
I still think it's a little bit lightweight in terms of physicality. That's the only piece that I would say is probably missing there, certainly for domestically. I think if you were to throw in, again, like a Joe Aribo type of player, I think that's someone that will probably be missing, someone with a bit of physicality and someone that can... I still think we're light on goals from the midfield three. I mean, again, the kind of barometer that we can use is just them across the city. But just because they're our nearest rivals and they're doing what we need to be starting to do domestically. But if you look at their like McGregor, Hatate, Pengels, these guys are rocking up double figures in terms of goals. I'm not sure what Raskin finished on yet last year. He obviously had a really strong finish, and Diamandi, I imagine, would be surprised if he had more than 4 or 5. It doesn't look like Rothwell's going to be prolific. So yeah, a bit more physicality and a goal scorer within there, I think, is still missing a little bit. But again, I won't be complaining too much if the goals are spread across the team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mentioned at the start about the link to Leeds. This is the kind of first sign we've seen of of a player of that ilk that's had that sort of direct link. Is it something you're expecting? Obviously, Kevin Thelwell came in from Everton. Dan Purdy's the same from Everton, so not really the team that you're looking at from a recruitment perspective, and to oversee that from a director of football perspective don't necessarily have those links to 49ers Enterprises Leeds, but this is the first sign of they are actually looking to tap into that. Is it something you would expect to see more of as the summer goes on?
I would think so. One of the interesting quotes that came out of the new owners, I think it was Magath. I think Magath said, "If we need a plumber, then we'll speak to the Rangers plumber, then we'll speak to the Leeds plumber, and then we'll see who's the best man for the job." I think in terms of, and I like that because it kind of breaks it down into kind of real life scenarios, because we talk a lot about it, obviously, in terms of football chat. But if we're doing that with our players, now this one's slightly unique in the fact that Russell Martin's worked with them as well. But you can imagine we're looking for a goal scoring number 8, for example, or an attacking right back. Then all of a sudden you can go to Leeds and go, right, who's on your database? Who's on your list? Who've you looked at? This guy, let's have it right. Leeds aren't going to be sending duds up the road. It's no advantage to anyone. That type of situation's not going to win for anyone. I do think you'll see transfers between the two. I've kind of got no doubt that will happen over time. You see it across I'm not saying we're part of like a City group, but you see it and it works. And I think it will work well for us. There's going to be players, I think I said this on a pod a few weeks ago or a few months ago, where Leeds will identify 100 players, and they will probably only try and approach 10 of them. But you know what? They might identify within that remaining 90 that there's almost a player there that's not ready for the Premier League, but you know what? They could be ready for Scotland. So I think you will see a lot of relationship building there between the two teams and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. So Joe Rothwell, a name that came up today, one that seems to be pretty far down the line if reports are to be believed. So we'll keep an eye on that one, and no doubt I think that will be a second signing in the door of the transfer window after Max Aarons. Hamza Igamane is the other big name. We've spoken about incomings there, but outgoings are just as important this summer. Hamza Igamane maybe one that we don't want to see leave, but seems to be moving closer and closer to that exit door. Reports of a latest bid of roughly 17 million euros plus a sell-on fee. I think Rangers were asking for around a 30% sell-on fee. I'm not sure they will get as much as that, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. There were reports earlier today that Igamane arrived in France today for his medical. That just before we came live, that was rubbished by Scott McDermott from the Daily Record and the Sunday Mail, as saying that's based on his information, that's not what's happening. So interesting, that one may have a wee bit further to go than we initially thought. How are you feeling about it all at this moment in time, JB? Are you resigned and accepting of the fact that he's leaving and we're getting a good return for him in terms of financial return?
Yes and no. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because sometimes you've got to play devil's advocate with these type of situations, because there must have been a reason why Clement and Ferguson weren't playing him as the 9. Was because of the tactical awareness? Was it he wasn't following instruction? Was he struggling in training? Was there a language barrier? All of these things kind of, and again, you don't know how well the kid settled as well to the climate and the country and everything else that goes with that. So weighing it all up, I think that the money that's being bounced about feels about right. I mean, depending on what reports you read, we paid between 1.7 and 3 million for him. There's rumours obviously circulating that there was a 30% fee entitled to go back to his club. That was rubbished on I think it might have been on the Rangers Review this morning. That was kind of said we don't believe that to be true. It wouldn't surprise me if there's maybe 30% on top of any profit that's made, which will obviously bring it down a wee bit. But yeah, I think it's a disappointing one, because we haven't been spoilt, have we, over the last few years, of players who've just got raw ability. We've had plenty of players that have come in with ability, but he's so raw in terms of, I think somebody described him as a little bit similar to Wayne Rooney in terms of the fact that he can just do things and you go, how's he just done that? Do you know, like it's not stuff that you train or you practice. It's
Yeah.
just a case of he just does it. As I said the other day on the pod, there was a long ball up from might have even been Butland that pinged it against Dundee United away, and he just took it on his chest and rolled the defender in one movement, and you just go, wow. And then again, I think I said the other night, me and my dad watched his YouTube compilation of the highlights from this last season. It was 10 minutes long, and it was almost like he's got a little bit of everything. He's one of them. If we were signing him, we'd be super excited. But again, the type of money that's being quoted, if that then allows us to maybe bring in two to replace him, then it's the nature of the beast. We can't sit here and complain about players getting stagnant and complain that after the 55 season we didn't refresh the squad when we needed it. So I think this is just hopefully this is the start of a successful approach that the club's going to have. It is going to be interesting because I know you've seen a lot of people on social media today very critical of the Cody signings and the Rothwell type of signings. Are we just going out and getting like an English old boys act?
Yeah.
I definitely don't think that's going to be the case. I think what we'll probably do is look to try and build a spine as quickly as possible as we can, because going into these games over the next few weeks and months, we're going to need players to hit the ground running. So again, getting that spine is going to be super important. But yeah, back to your original question, I'll be super disappointed when he goes. But he's one that will naturally just wish well, and hopefully we have got that sell-on clause, and we can get a bit excited when he goes to move on, because that's the type of stuff we need to be doing now.
100%. He'll be one of those players that we see ourselves watching him play on Sunday nights and just on TV to see how he's getting on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He definitely does go with our best wishes when he does. So, JB, we spoke on Sunday night about the importance of the player trading model. I guess the counter to that is that if you sell a player for big money from our side at the start of the window, it does create that visibility for other clubs that they've got money in their back pocket and they've got money. We can maybe get an extra $1 million or $2 million out of them. I think Parag Manata said, I think when he was asked what is the transfer budget for this summer, he said, I'll keep that close to my chest because we don't want everyone knowing how much that is. But naturally, if you sell a player for big money, other clubs are aware of that and they see that. Do you think there's a potential that it creates a bit of difficulty for us in some transfer negotiations on that front?
Potentially, yeah. But again, in terms of, we'll probably be to none of the fees are kind of all up front nowadays, are they? Everything does tend to be spread over the length of the contract. So I think in terms of that, I think if we were looking, I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not going to be in the market for 15, 20 million pound players. Do you know what I mean? It might be that a £4 million player now becomes 5 million. So I think in terms of that again, it's just the devil in it, isn't it? In terms of, and we'd be the exact same. So if we just seen a club sell a player for X, we'd be saying, right, we want that little bit extra. So there's potential that we'll be doing the exact same across the market. So, but I think what it does show is that it will show players, young players, potentially from obscure places like Morocco. Hello to all of our Moroccan subscribers. It kind of shows that you can. What a story that is. Come in, spend 12 months, and then you could potentially be catapulted into a top 5 league, and then potentially playing in European League, Europa Leagues, Champions Leagues, and so on and so forth. So I think from that side of it, it's a really good news story. We've only had a handful of them, unfortunately, over recent years. We've been able to say, well, this is what we're trying to do. I think, and that if you consider the club's been ran absolutely fastly off the pitch. So if you think about if we do it this way, and he's the first of that model, and then potentially Diamandi's obviously been mentioned as well as somebody that has come in for a reasonable fee, and then potentially you then double, tripling your money on that. It's the way we've got to go. And we've seen teams do it successfully, and with not a lot of money cutting about Scottish football, it's definitely the way that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to look after ourselves.
100%. Just before we finish on Hamza Igamane, got Quentin who says, hi, I'm a Lille fan. Have you got news about Igamane? We don't have news as such. We've just got what's been reported. But how would you sum up in a couple of Hamza Igamane in a couple of sentences, JB, just to let Quentin know what kind of player you feel that they're going to get?
He's rubbish. You should you should tell your club not to sign him. No, joking aside, he's he's special. He's I think somebody described him throughout the season as a once in a generation talent in terms of someone that we've seen. I think you'll get fans off the seats. You've only got to go back to his highlights, just watch his highlight reel, and that'll keep you excited enough. But I think in terms of he showed what he could do in France as well. And now I know it wasn't Nice's full team on the night, but again, that just kind of showed that he's walked into it was a big stadium. It wasn't a particularly intimidating crowd, but it just goes to show that level of quality of player that he was up against. And it was like he was playing in the playground with his friends. It was no bother to him. Tottenham at Ibrox under that pressure with that scrutiny, absolute no bother. Old Firm coming on in front of 65,000 fans, full stadium, vying for blood. I was about to say in the Lions Den then, but there's no Lions. But he come on there and he was composed, gets stuck in. He's got a little bit of everything. Again, we just don't know why the two previous managers haven't probably had a little bit more faith in him. But when your job's on the line, you probably sometimes just resort to safety. So no, as I say, best of luck to him when he does move on, because he's been really good to watch. I've enjoyed it.
He absolutely has. Right, on to the player that you said would be a Rangers player today, JB. So we're all looking at you. Connor Cody. I've written down here, where is he, JB? But you've already kind of touched on that. I think I'm more interested, given the Joe Rothwell news and the fact that Joe Rothwell was 30. I think Connor Cody's 32 off the top of my head. And I'm just interested in, I guess, the importance of that level of experience that we seem to be looking to bring in to the team, and that level of being there, done that. I guess it did feel last season like we were missing that quite a bit. What do you make of moves like Rothwell and Cody in terms of bringing that level of maturity and probably leadership as well into the squad?
Yeah, I think that's definitely been the thing. I mean, you've only got to look at the Old Firm game when Tavernier was out around the Christmas mark. It was names in a hat as to who was going to be the captain on the day, because of the sheer lack of leaders that are kicking around that squad. Don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of a mixture of that because we've gone out and signed some younger players, but then in terms of actual leaders, and probably say narcs. You know what I mean? Who's the people in training? Who's demanding standards being set? One of the things, again, unfortunately, I feel as if I say this every pod, we keep referring back to the 55 season, but it almost felt as if you had a handful of leaders in the squad who were kind of really demanding. I think Jermaine Defoe spoke about it on one of his interviews not long after he'd left us on TalkSport. He spoke and he read from the first day of training, everyone was on each other. It didn't matter whether it was Goldson, it didn't matter whether it was Tavernier, Ryan Jack, all of these players who've kind of been captains in their club, Stephen Davis, Malcolm McGregor, kind of the list, and that was before Defoe. So all of these guys who were standard setters in terms, and it doesn't necessarily have to be standard setters like look at me and look at what I've won, but it was almost a case of people that just wanted to go that extra mile. In terms of Cody specifically, I've seen quite a bit of him, mainly because he was obviously with the Liverpool connection, and then he was at Everton for a good period of time, and got to see many of them because that's me mum's side of the family. My dad's side of the family's Rangers. I always get asked why do you support Rangers with the accent, so there you go. But in terms of watching him, I got to see a handful of games, and he's and you hear people saying, "Oh, he's a leader." Why? Because he shouts loud. But he shepherded that back line, and it wasn't a great back line he was working with. But he was super, and he really composed. He's really comfortable on the ball. Can get from back to front quite quickly as well. If you think about the amount of attacks Connor Goldson used to create at pace, I don't think we've ever really replaced that outlet since Golson's gone. We've had some people that have tried it, but not particularly well. So I think he'll be somebody that'll come in. I think he'll thrive on the opportunity of coming up the road and playing for a very big club. I think he's played for good clubs, good solid clubs down in England. He's had that responsibility of being a captain in the English Championship. He's had that responsibility of being a captain in the English Premier League. I think as well like especially down on Merseyside, the Everton fans don't forget the fact he's played for Liverpool and he's openly admitting he's a Liverpool fan, and he turned them round, which is no big ask, trust me. So yeah, I think in terms of, it just feels like a little bit of a no-brainer for us. Don't get me wrong, there's better players than Conor Cody who've come up the road and not succeeded, but I kind of just feel that he's got a little bit of everything. So, but yeah, in terms of the signing, I was fully expecting it to be today based on some of the local sources, shall we say. Again, just waiting to. I'm trying to find out whether there's been a bit of a breakdown in terms of the expecting more players to go out. Robin Propper, for example, I think everybody thought would be out the door by now. He's also doing some of his the work with the. My dad reminded me today he's doing the work with the Club World Cup as well. So again, what does that look and feel like? But he was back at Leicester yesterday training, so I don't imagine that's going to be holding things up too much. But it could just be a case of. But for all we know, contracts are signed and stuff. I do like the way that, I mean, the Conor Cody one's not a good example, but I do like the way the Rothwell ones, they just came out of nowhere. And I think that is something that we're going to need to get used to. Gone are the days where people within the club are giving snippets out to people and leaking stuff to the press. By all accounts, the local Leeds press hate it. They're interacting with Leeds now because they don't give them anything. Now, one thing that's not a good mix with us because of the fact that we want to know the inside leg measurements of everyone and everything that's going on. So I think in terms of that, that's just something that we might need to get used to. It just doesn't feel like a good time to get used to something like that, given the position that we're in. And a huge match, potentially our biggest match of the season, is in nearly 3 weeks' time. So still time on our hands, but needless to say, we need to get a shift on now. So hopefully the next couple of days is exciting.
100%. Right. I think we'll call the podcast there. As I said, we're looking at a couple of shorter podcasts during the week, and then you'll have the full hour podcast at the weekend as well on a Sunday night at 7:30. So thank you very much to GB for joining us. Thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in to listen. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel. It means you won't miss out on any of the content coming up. And you won't miss out on any of our match reactions, etc. as well, that come through the season. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Until next time.